Well, here we are, 2022. Aren't we lucky?
I wrote that on an invoice recently. I went, oh my gosh, we have to start writing 2022. There's always such a new thing. I have to keep remembering 2022, 2022.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you had a wonderful holiday. If you celebrated it, I hope it was the best. So today, we're glad you've joined us. And what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, what we thought we'd share is how we used to have a habit of the beginning of the year doing New Year's resolutions. I mean, that was a habit. That was a convention. It's a social convention, right? Let's make New Year's resolutions. Let's make this year better than ever. We're going to change some things about our lives that we feel are a little subpar, could be better. Let's make ourselves better. And well, that ended for us a while ago. but we wanted to share a little bit about it because part of the reason it ended for me was that it would start out so exciting. I was so inspired. I'm going to really make change, and I gave it all my attention and all my effort, and I made plans, and this is what I was going to do. But the more effort I put in, trying to remember what to do and what not to do, and what to do if that thing happened, it just, trying to manage my life that way was crazy. And so I threw them out the window.
Yeah, that's often what happened for me too. They just faded into the distance somehow.
Well, that's good that they faded for you. I just said, screw this. In fact, we heard someone was telling us that there's actually a day, January 17th, has been dubbed the Ditch Your New Year's Resolutions Day, because there's actually research that shows that the average New Year's resolution lasts 17 days. And it's kind of puzzling. Well, why would that be? But we all experience, I think, at least I have, Connie has, and most everyone we talk to, they've all experienced when we set out to change ourselves through behavior modification, and remember not to do this, and remember to do this, and if that happens, then do this, and all the strategies and techniques we used to use to try and make our lives better. It's not the way life works. It actually isn't the way that change naturally happens. We're constantly changing, aren't we? I mean, I look back to the preferences I had around food even a few years ago. And they've changed. And well, what made them change? We so naturally move into what's the next best thing in our lives. That's the way that life works. Life is always growing and expanding. We're always being drawn into what's next. And what we're drawn into has everything to do with kind of a level of consciousness, you might say. We were listening to a podcast this morning where someone was talking about the analogy of our changing consciousness, how our consciousness changes throughout the day and throughout our lives, like an elevator. And the higher you get up on an elevator, I think of an elevator like one of those glass elevators on the outside of a hotel or a building, where the higher you go, the more perspective you have of your surroundings. And the more perspective you have of your surroundings, the more you kind of understand how everything fits together. You're down at the street level, and there's a lot of busy cars going by, horns honking, people rushing. It's hard to see what that's all about. But the higher you get, the more you can understand, you can see how it all fits together. And so they were using that analogy to explain how, as our consciousness rises or opens more, it's like we have a broader perspective and we understand more what's going on. And in that understanding, we have more options of how to interrelate with it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So looking at this elevator analogy and how it is that if we want to see something change in our lives, if we want to let go of an old habit, let's say, around food, about our relationship with potato chips or with pizza or chocolate or chocolate chip cookies, whatever it is. It isn't that we want to just say, well, there's nothing I can do. I don't want to go try and make this happen. What we're seeing is the more we understand about the nature of our mind, the changing nature of our state of mind, our consciousness, and how as our awareness opens, as we relax and rest into the present moment, the better our options are on how to respond in a certain situation.
So what you're saying is the more I can just get present to life, to circumstance, to everything that's occurring, the more I have the opportunity to see things clearly and to make good choices.
Yeah, it's almost like the more clearly I see something, the more my choice is made for me to do the better thing. Like what happens to me, I get triggered sometimes. I think I've shared this on the blog. I get triggered and I get angry, and I sometimes even raise my voice and say things that I wish I hadn't said. And I can see how I do that when that elevator's down on the ground floor and it looks like chaos. I've got to get control of things. And the way to control things is to get them to stop saying what they're saying or doing what they're doing or something like that. It's that low level of consciousness that brings the options that I have to deal with what appears to be going on in the way I feel, to try and get back to a state of feeling better, more calm, more stable, in control. And what I've seen is how when that happens, I understand now that I'm going through this process based on my level of consciousness, not because that's a real effective way to interact with people. When I'm aware and understand this elevator idea of consciousness, and that my response is simply out of a lower level of awareness, I stop and I go, whoa, this really isn't a good solution to what's going on right now. I know what the outcome is like. We've got kind of a cold shoulder toward us for sometimes days or weeks. And that isn't what I want. As I'm aware of this changing nature of my state of mind and how my responses are different from different levels, I actually, it stops me in my tracks. It's like, oh, that again. Done this before, not a good solution. What do I want? And in that, what do I really want? Pause. In that pause, things settle down in my mind. I begin to see a much better next instead of continuing to raise my voice or demand this or demand that. It's like, whoa, maybe an apology is in order here. And it's just so easy to move on to a very different response. Or if it's around food, and I'm really drawn to something that I know isn't going to have me feeling good after I eat it, I can go ahead and eat it and go through the consequences. But when I see again this level of the elevator, and I go, oh, I'm wanting to eat that because I think it's going to make me feel better and deal with this emotional thing that's going on. And it's like, oh, what's that about? And when I pause, somehow I seem to come into the present moment. I somehow, that feeling doesn't grip me as strongly. And as there's that pause and my mind settles a bit, I see a whole other option. Now, if I want something to eat, I'll eat something better, or I'll have a drink of water. I'll go, that isn't gonna help. And in that pause, I can sense how that feeling is starting to subside, how that feeling that I think I need to do something about through food or raising my voice or whatever, how that feeling is actually designed to move right on through. It is not going to stay there until I do something about it. If I will pause and just allow myself to kind of be with that feeling, it starts to change.
True.
Like
It
everything,
moves.
nature to change.
Mm.
So that's what we wanted to share today, that this whole idea that making New Year's resolutions and setting goals in any way, really, there's nothing wrong with doing that. The value that we find in resolutions or goals these days now is that it gives us a direction in our lives, but we don't see ourselves achieving that change or achieving that goal through willpower and determination.
And have to.
And that's what I used to do too. When I'd throw those resolutions out, I would feel so guilty. I would beat myself up. It's like, what's wrong with you? Other people are making changes. I'm weak. I'm not very capable, not very competent to really create the life that I want. And that too is the kind of thinking that comes from that lower level of consciousness, the elevator on a lower level. Because I see now, when I don't pursue making change through effort, it's not because I'm weak or not competent. It's that's not the way life works. It's not the way real sustainable change works. Real sustainable change works when I understand more about who I really am and how life works and how everything that I'm really looking for, all the happiness, the love, the joy that I'm looking for in my life doesn't come from the circumstances outside of me, doesn't come from a particular activity, a particular relationship, having a certain amount of money in the bank. That love, that joy, that stability comes from recognizing the nature of my life as abundant.
It's always present.
That I see from a higher level on the elevator.
Good. Yeah, I guess what I hear you say is just get present, relax. Life isn't so serious. And you'll be led to what is your next best. You don't even have to write it on a piece of paper or outline how to get there. It all happens naturally if we just relax and connect with that deeper place inside of who we really are. Life just leads us perfectly.
Yeah, life has become so much easier, simpler, more graceful as we've begun to understand that change doesn't come about through willpower and effort, but rather by simply opening to the capacity that we have within ourselves and relying, listening to our bodies, listening to the wisdom that we have for what's next, that's leading us in the direction of the life that we're looking for.
What recipe shall we do? Maybe Bill made a cake that was really good with oats, apple, orange, cranberry. And you can use it as a breakfast square. It's very dense and crunchy. Or you can make cookies. Could you make cookies out of it? Yeah, you could make cookies out of it. Or you can have it as a dessert. We'll share that recipe with you. It's delicious.
Yeah, with the cranberries, kind of still holiday-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.